morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of those who are in the CREST online training. This is part 1, editing, lesson 13 slash 10th grade. For those of you who have been watching the other 3 videos, I divided them by elementary, appropriate, 5th, 6th, 7th, 7th and 8th, and 7th through 10th. Any secondary students can get the editing type questions related to punctuation that we're going to be looking at. Our last video, this one here, is going to have one of those rare, what is the best way or what is the correct way to write sentences, plural, blank and blank. That means that the first one is a sentence and the second one is a fragment, or that the first one is a fragment and the second one is a sentence. A fragment is missing the subject or the predicate. It's like the scarecrow missing his brain. So he would be kind of like a fragment. And the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz was missing his heart. So he was missing his predicate, his action, or his verb. So we've got to check and see. We'll do one regular change for 10th grade and one correct or best. And then I'll let you guys work with the other one so you can help your students with that. As I did in the other situations, just want to remind you, this is an important part of your teaching tools for the next several months. If you're a 10th grade teacher or a 9th grade teacher, as I mentioned, your last editing and revising in the old STAR format is going to be in December for your retesters, and you'll have 9 editing questions that will look exactly like this. So somebody asks, well, what grade levels are your folders? Well, they ask the same questions in the same format, regardless of grade level. They just have passages that are a little bit more developed in the upper grades and less developed in the lower grades. So regardless of what grade level we're talking about, all of these skills apply to all grade levels. The only thing that I will tell you is that they tend to focus more on colons and semicolons in secondary, but it wouldn't hurt to allow your students in elementary to expose them to that when they're reading, so they can make those connections. What does a sentence with a semicolon look like joining an independent clause to a list? And what does an independent clause followed by a semicolon without a capital with another independent clause look like? So the first part of lesson 13 was 4th grade. We did questions 2 and 3. The second part was appropriate for 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. We did number 7 and 9. The third part of lesson 13 was number 14 and 15, appropriate for 7th through 10th grade. And this number 18 and number 20 will also be appropriate for 7th through 10th grade, any secondary. So I would recommend that you really practice these. I did what I felt like was modeling for the most difficult ones so that you can practice some of the other ones on your own or with your students. And of course, if you've taught the skill, then you can give a grade for that afterwards. So last time we're working on punctuation with the FAT guide, the floor for periods, exclamations, and question marks, the air for apostrophes, quotation marks, contractions, and the table bounces for commas, colons, and semicolons. And we're also trying to check, now that we know what sentences look and sound like, we'll be able to hopefully check for run-ons and fragments that have either comma conjunction problems repetition problems, content, meaning problems, or the wrong cause and effect, or compare and contrast or relationship in the answer choices. So you can pick the best one based on that. So when you look at the back page of the editing, revising rules, you'll see something or someone called Mrs. PVC. And so if you look at that for a moment, if you pause and look at that rules of editing and revising, it's a PDF for most of you. Some of you got a hard copy of it. Look on the back part, the second page, and you'll see Mrs. PVC, where the MRS and the PVC are different reasons you would eliminate an answer choice. So let's get right to it. We'll do questions 18 and 20 on pages, let's find out. Page 18 through 20 is going to be pages 550 and 551. Okay, so here we go. As you see here, we should set up our whatever you feel like is best for you. But if you're gonna kind of take some of my ideas, one that I found is best after 18 years of consulting and 12 years in the classroom, is some rules that give me rules for test taking skills, because of kids who just want to bubble in answers. Rules again: read the question and what it's asking about. Underline question and what it's asking about. Label in both places. Evaluate, execute your plan so you can eliminate 3 answer choices. Select one in the test and submit that letter on the answer document. So the 10th grade question like this one from the 2019 test only had 58% correct. So that's why I'm choosing it. So something with this skill was a little bit hard for your kids to grasp. So let's take a look and see. We will go ahead and read softly if we're in a partner or testing situation, or read loudly if we're in a class or group situation. So the question said, what change, underline change, make a little bracket called labeling around the sentence that you're going to look at. So it's question 18 is going to be looking at sentence 19. So you open the bracket at the beginning of sentence 19 and close it at the end. And you'll just remind yourself that what you're doing here is this is for question number 18 is about sentence number 19. So once you see change, the other thing that you'll label over here is the cups. And again, you can use your notes in the online format and then kind of delete them as you go. So there's not too many in there, because I'm just so worried still about the computers crashing in the past. Hopefully, our new testing companies have solved these issues where your kids can annotate and make notes as much as they want. And I really hope that happens, because I don't like the fact that your kids cannot annotate and do strategies right there on the problem like I'm showing you here. I'm having to use a Zoom program to show you how to connect to online, but this could be done in the note section, or so that you can keep it and make it part of the grade as part of the line paper. They can turn it into with their name and say, okay, here's all the strategies they did. So based on the percentage of strategies, they should get a certain percent based on how much they actually apply the things that you taught them. So changes cups. So delete the comma after delete the comma. That's a P punctuation mistake. Insert a comma after heart. That's a punctuation mistake. Insert a comma after pride. That's a punctuation mistake. Or change your to your. I'm going to call that usage because those are both correct. It depends on how they're being used. So it's real important that you look closely at your and you do something kinesthetic and verbal, your as in you are, or your as in your house or our house. So yes, this first portion is punctuation related, but we're slowing down to make the contraction. So let's go ahead and take a look at our 4 choices after we look at the question. Capital. To put it another way, comma, and I'll go ahead and draw my circles around the comma and my periods around the stop signs, because that's our fat guide. So this would be a table bounce, and this would be a floor bounce if you're making punctuation kinesthetic besides just verbal. So capital, to put it another way, comma, table bounce. If you really love someone with all of your heart, my brain made me pause right there. And so I think that we should have slowed down right there to do something. I'm going to make my little wall there. You will swallow your pride, first thing you do, and apologize when you know you are wrong. Period. Bouncing on the floor. Since I can already tell that you are wrong sounds correct, what I should probably do right away is get rid of the one they're trying to change it to, and we'll eliminate the usage of your house versus my house. So let's check the other choices. Delete the comma. To put it another way, that's a 5-phrase introductory phrase, 5-word introductory phrase. I don't think I would want to delete the comma because that is an appropriate introductory phrase. So let's eliminate that one. Insert a comma after heart. There was where I felt like my brain was causing me to pause. If you really love someone with all of your heart. So there's an introductory phrase, to put it another way, followed by a dependent clause, followed by a comma that should have been there, followed by an independent clause. So you can tell why so many of the 10th graders got this kind of a question, one that was like it, correct? I just made my own sentences in a similar way. I think that that is the correct answer. I'm going to put a check mark there, but let's check the other one that's left just in case. Insert a comma after pride. So they're saying, let's slow down and place a comma there after pride. Capital. To put it another way, comma, table bounce. If you really love someone with all your heart, you will swallow your pride, comma, and apologize when you know you're wrong. Since you're only doing 2 things, swallowing your pride and apologizing when you're wrong, you don't separate those 2 compound predicates with a comma. So we're going to eliminate letter H. And again, in an online testing format only, you would have A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D over and over again. So the only one that kind of makes sense is a complex sentence where you join a dependent clause to an independent clause with a comma. So since that is the correct response, we would go ahead and fill in letter G. And that's what that would look like. I've already done all my strategies, my labeling, everything that I feel is necessary. Clear the drawings, and we'll do the other one very quickly. Mouse to move to number 20. And so all of you that have not seen one of these yet from 3rd through 10th grade, you can possibly get one. These are not limited to secondary or high school. They can give your 3rd, 4th, or 5th graders one of these questions. So it's really important that you practice this one. And again, in my email, I'll make reference to the places where you can practice a full passage punctuation and a passage that has nothing but run-ons and fragments, using a concept that talks about the importance of visual, verbal, auditory, and kinesthetic learning. So what is our quick fix strategy for Mr. McDonald? It's read both places, underline, label, eliminate, and select the correct answer in the booklet and submit it in the Scantron. So we're ready to underline. What is the best way? So as soon as it says best, we know it's either rule 2 or rule 3. Since it says sentences, not sentence, that's one of those SAF type. That means that the first sentence is either a complete thought and the second one is the fragment, okay? Or that the first one is the fragment and the second one is the sentence. So it won't take long to have your kids do that. So we have to check and see which one is which. And when you look at the answer choices down below, apparently there is something wrong with one of those two sentences. So let's see how we can fix it. We have 2 consecutive, and if you notice on editing and revising, they do pay close attention to this right here. They do number every single sentence in the entire passage for you, so that you can quickly go to the sentence and not be having to count inside of a paragraph. So let's check and see. Because of the best and correct, I think it's going to be a good idea to go ahead and circle all of our commas. See any in the sentence we're fixing? No, but there's one here in F, that's a table bounce. In G, I see one after sick, one after hospital, letter H after hospital, and letter J, again hospital. Then we'll switch to the red stop signs. Where do we see some periods after hospital? And immediately, 2 stop signs, 2 streets. And letter F at the end of immediately and after critical. After immediately, only 1 stop sign in this street called the sentence. Letter H, 1 stop sign. And letter J, only 1 stop sign. So again, this makes me pay attention to them. So either make it verbal, V, or kinesthetic, K. Let's just let your students read things silently. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna read the question and all the answer choices that go with the sentence we're trying to fix. We'll underline in all the places, label everywhere that we need to. We'll begin to eliminate the 3 wrong answers since it is multiple choice. And up until this coming year, there's always going to be 3 incorrect answers. We'll select the one in the book that we think is the, or on the sheet, the page that we're on in the computer, then we'll submit our answer. So let's begin, shall we? And try our strategies. Capital. In the event that one of you gets sick and needs to go to the hospital, period. That should not have stopped. That should have been a slow down punctuation. So what we're hoping for is one that has a comma right there, because if I'm drawing my little ear there, I was listening and I was thinking, man, it sounds like we're supposed to be slowing down, not stopping the sentence. Comma, take out the capital. It is critical that you call 911 immediately. So we know that something has to be fixed right here. That's an issue. So let's check and see. Capital. In the event that one of you gets sick and needs to go to the hospital, comma, it is critical, period. That you call 911 immediately, because that's a fragment. I would eliminate that choice. Letter F. You need to not go from a fragment to a fragment. You got to go from a fragment to a sentence. Letter G, capital. In the event that one of you gets sick, comma, and needs to go to the hospital. So if you get sick, that's one thing, and need to go to the hospital, that's another thing. Since there's only 2 on the list, because of that part, I find it, there it is. Because there's only 2 things being done, I don't need a comma separated there. So I'm automatically going to eliminate letter G. Capital. In the event that one of you gets sick and needs to go to the hospital, comma, it is critical that you call 911 immediately and go to the hospital. All right, so if you pay attention, what I want you to notice here is this portion here. And if I make this red like bricks, undo it, so I can make it red like bricks. Okay. Because it already said go to the hospital, what you need to help your kids decide is, well, since this one has repetition, it's using these 4 words that I'm going to call bricks to build a wall called a sentence. I've got to check and see if those same bricks are used again in the same sentence, and they are, and we said on our sentence boundary elimination that because of the repetition, I don't know if I would want to pick this. So I'm going to put a question mark, because if they both have repetition, these last 2, we'll choose the one that has the least amount of repetition. So let's look at our last one and see what, if this one's any better. Capital. In the event, you see my little pencil there, hopefully it shows up on your screen, that one of you gets sick and needs to go to the hospital, comma, short bounce, it is critical that you call 911 immediately, period. So since that's the only one that did what I thought I was supposed to do by just putting a slow down comma where they put a period up here, we would go with letter J. And many kids don't have the endurance, so they think that all these other ones sound great and they'll pick them, and that's the problem. So we're going to go ahead and go with selecting letter J. And if it's like that, then all you have to do is fill it in. The cool thing about the online format, it pretty much already fills it in, so you won't have messy bubblers where they're touching other bubbles that only allow you to pick one or the other. So maybe take a screenshot of that. Let me know which strategy that you liked best. If you watched all four, congratulations. Uh, I would suggest that maybe you try all 20, because the more you practice something, the better you're going to get at it. They're on my drawings. Stop sharing. So our punctuation part of part one is concluded. Our last section is going to be usage, but I will refer you to a couple places in the binder where you can practice regular punctuation in a full-length passage and practice just the rule 2 and 3. What is the correct or best way to write sentences? That way they can practice, your kids can practice those skills in isolation. So these videos are unlisted, which means only U.P.S online training people get them. I just want to touch on something really quickly. I'm going to be sending you, I've been helping parents with some of their students' scores. And so I've received the third through fifth grade elementary test. Kind of, they took the puzzles and we kind of put them together so that we could help the children of the parents. I've had parents in third, fourth, and fifth grade. I believe I also have been helping a seventh grader and a 10th grader. So if you're one of those grades and you would like help on specific questions, I have the cut and paste version of those. And so I'm willing to help any of you who are P.S online teachers as part of the training. It's like a bonus. And technically, even though the reading questions are not going to be discussed in depth until we get to part 3, where it's the constructed type, the 9 or 10 different types of constructed type besides regular multiple choice. The short answer, all of the 3rd through 10th grade students are going to get 2 short answer where you do the red light, what's the answer. The first part of the second point is where, WWE, what's the answer. Do it where I can. What's the answer? Where can you prove it? And actually name the evidence with or without quotation marks. And then, of course, in order to get the 3, you develop it and explain it, how it all ties together. And if you do a good job on conventions, you'll get a 4 or 5. That's going to be parts 3, 4, and 5. But I will be sending you, if you ask me, I need help with question whatever. So if it's not 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th, or 10th grade reading, I'll need you to take a screenshot for me and I can model the strategy. I'll have to see if it's regarding just a paragraph or a sentence. Just make sure you screenshot the paragraph or sentence. If it's an entire passage, you'll have to screenshot the passage for me so that I can help you. Because I don't want to wait until the end of August to help you. Let's fill in the gaps of last year's tests before we try to start filling bowls for this year's test, because we have too many calendar kids that are full of gaps and holes based on tests that were just taken in May. And this, if it was May, that's June, July. That was only 2 months ago. That means these kids are going into the next grade level with sometimes huge gaps and holes because of some of the percentages that you're going to see on their test. So that's going to be bonus. So anytime that somebody asks me for help on a question, I'm going to call it bonus material. It won't be called um, press part 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5. It'll just be me guiding you through. Here's a way that you could solve that. And yes, you're not going to learn it all in one strategy or one practice, but when we do anything at enough times, if we do extra time on each reading skill or extra times, you're going to get it. Because one of you was asking me, can you give me some more examples of the cause, transition, effect, conflict, transition, resolution, problem, comma, solution? Uh, yes, I can do that, but I just want to make sure we structure the training for the most part in the order that I told you, where it will be part one editing, part two revising, part three constructed reading and other subjects, part four short answer for reading, and part five extended essay for reading. Now, people have asked me, do I go ahead and ask the other subjects to do open-ended short answer? Yes, even though it's not tested in their subject area, if everybody is making kids answer questions in complete sentences, not just the reading teachers who are testing it, it's going to build a stronger foundation. Let's not make the same mistake we made in writing, where we only teach writing in fourth, seventh, ninth, and 10th. Let's teach it in all grade levels so that kids are learning how to write in all grade levels and all subjects in complete sentences. I'm going to call it my grade or more to get a good score. That means pre-K, kinder, first, you got to at least be able to write one sentence that starts with a capital and that ends with a punctuation with somewhat decent usage and spelling as soon as possible, and then add as we go throughout the year so we can get to our age from my grade low expectations to my age higher expectations. So we'll see you in our next video on usage.